And if you like the video or any other content on the channel, feel free to subscribe. This video is going to be a deep dive on the Custodian Bladechampion. We'll be going over the datasheet, some tips and tricks for the unit, the synergy for all the Custodes Detachments, the job role, and general game plan. Points won't be a factor, just the actual data card will be discussed and given a rank out of 10 for each detachment. We'll go over the actual Bladechampion's datasheet first. It has a movement of 6, toughness of 6, 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable, 6 wounds, 6 leadership, and a 2 OC. There's no ranged weapons with the Bladechampion at all. The melee weapon, you can either pick one of these 3 weapon profiles. They have Behemoth, and it's a precision weapon with 6 attacks, 2-up weapon skill, 7 strength, AP2 damage 2. Hyrcanus, and this has sustained hits, 9 attacks, 2-up weapon skill, 5 strength, AP1 damaged 1. Finally, this is the one I use the most. It has devastating wounds. It's 5 attacks, 2 up, 6 strength, AP3, damage 3. And then like I said, I do like to use this one the most because it is the most damage. It's AP3 damage 3 with some devastating wounds if you roll the 6s. You can lead either Custodian Guard or Wardens, only one of these per group. The keywords you have is Infantry, Character, Imperium, Bladechampion, and Adeptus Custodes. For the abilities, we have Deep Strike, Martial Kata, Swift Onslaught, and Martial Inspiration. Alright, so let's go over the abilities next. So it does have Martial Kata, so you can either select Sustained 1 or Lethal Hits in the fight phase, and also Deep Strike just so you can drop 9 inches anywhere on the board away from enemy opponents. Then we have Swift Onslaught, and while this model is leading a unit, you can re-roll the charge roll made for that unit. Great ability to allow more reliable charges to any Custodian Guard or Warden unit we may attach the Bladechampion to. Has to be leading a unit, so solo units will not be able to re-roll charge rolls. Then we have Martial Inspiration, and this is once per battle in your charge phase, this model's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. Very useful for a slow movement of 6 walking up the board army, and this will give the Bladechampion's unit he is attached to a potential once per game 24-inch threat range. It's going to be pretty rare to roll the 6 for the 12-inch advance and then the double 12 for the charge, but still that threat is there and they will have to respect that. And here we have the detachment themselves. We have the Null, Maiden, Vigil, Shield Host, Talons of the Emperor, and Auric Champions. And we'll go through each one of these detachments and just give a little bit of highlight of some of the benefits to bringing a Bladechampion to some of these detachments. We'll start with the Null, Maiden, Vigil. And the Null, Maiden, Vigil's detachment rule is Creeping Dread. In the battle shock step of the opponent's army, if any unit is below starting strength and within 12 inches of a Psychana unit, the enemy unit must take a battle shock test. If below half strength, -1 to that battle shock roll. And another character who gains nothing from the detachment rules and stratagems could be joined to a unit of Custodian Wardens using the 2 strong datasheets to make a potent unit even with no detachment rule or stratagems. Unlike any of the 3 Shield Captain variants, the Bladechampion does not have a turn, a battle tactic stratagem to 0 CP ability, meaning it does not pay extra points for an ability it will never use besides CP reroll in this detachment. With the Bladechampion being one, if not the best non-Psychonic character for the Null, Maiden, Vigil, I give the Bladechampion a well above average score of 8. Not having any benefit with the detachment does bring it down some. It's still a great option to add to a Custodian Warden unit that we may want to add into a Null, Maiden, Vigil list, just add a little bit of toughness to the army. Now we'll go through Auric Champions, and the Auric Champions detachment rule is Assemblage of Might. At the start of your command phase, select 1 unit from your opponent's army until the next command phase. Each time an Adeptus Custodes character model makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll, and that can be in your ranged or your melee. The Bladechampion will enjoy having +1 to wound to the different weapon profiles it has access to in the melee phase. Will really be helpful into tougher units since the weapon profiles are not high strength. It does have a high damage profile with devastating wounds, but the strength is only 6, so +1 to wound will help this weapon. Next, we'll go through the Auric Champions enhancements. The first one we have is Blade Imperator, and these will sound familiar because they are the Custodian Index enhancements. For 25 points, Blade Imperator, each time a bearer's unit ends a charge move, select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of the bearer's unit, roll a d6, On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Once per battle, after the bear's unit ends a charge move, all enemy units within 6 inches of the bear must take a battle shock test. In this enhancement, I use the least in this detachment. It can be decent for getting a little more damage over a successful charge, but other than that, I would rather use one of the other enhancements on my Blade Champion. We have an inspirational exemplar, and what this one does is the bear has a leadership of 5, and then once per battle at the start of any phase, you can select one friendly Custodes unit that is battle shocked, and within 12 inches of the bear, that unit is no longer battle shocked. And this can be useful against Tyranids or Chaos Knights who thrive on having enemy units battle shocked, but other than that, this is not the most useful enhancement. Decent points filler, but you could also turn a Prosecutor squad into a Witch Seeker squad with those same 10 points. And then we come to the second set of enhancements. We have Veiled Blade. This one is add 2 to the attack characteristics of the bear's melee weapons. Once per battle at the start of any command phase, triple the bear's OC until the end of the turn. And this is a great enhancement for a Blade Champion. Getting 2 extra attacks from the Devastating Wounds profile is a good way to boost our Blade Champion's damage output. The extra OC once per game can be very useful on a solo Blade Champion, giving them an objective control of 6. And this will allow you to take an objective for maybe a 5-man unit of Terminators or any 5-man that's only objective 1 each per model. Then we have the Martial Philosopher. The bear's unit is eligible to shoot and or declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back, and that is all game. And then once per battle, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches of the bear, if the bear's unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more units, it can make a normal move up to 6, so reactive move up to 6 inches. This was the best enhancement in the Custodes Index, and now that is in the Auric Champions detachment, it is now the best enhancement in that detachment. Having the fallback and charge on a unit all game long with a once per game up to 6-inch reactive move is a must-have. Although I do like solo characters in this detachment, I would rather have the Blade Champion with some Wardens with this enhancement just to get the most of a all-game fallback and charge with a bigger unit. Next, we'll go over any stratagems that may influence our decision to take a Blade Champion or even multiple Blade Champions in the Auric Champions list. First we have Superhuman Reserves, and what this does is any phase just after a Warlord model has used a once per battle ability or enhancement, your Warlord can use this ability an additional time, but not this phase. It has to wait until after the phase that you used it. It is 2 CP to reset the Martial Inspiration to gain the Advance and Charge ability one more time, but the Blade Champion would have to be the Warlord and survive until the next phase. Not really worth the 2 CP, but I did want to mention this one since it is the most unique of the Auric Champions stratagems. This is one of the better stratagems in the Auric Champions detachment. It is called Earning a Name. Up to 2 Adeptus Custodes characters units from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase until the end of the phase. If a character model in either of those units attacks a monster or vehicle unit, you can re-roll the hit or the wound roll. And this is a great stratagem to help boost the already potent melee of the Victus weapon profile with the 5 attacks, Strength 6, AP 3, Damage 3 with Devastating Wounds. With Sustained Hits Kata, we can use this stratagem to reroll anything that is not a 6 for the hit and the wound roll. Blade Champion is one of the best characters we have for punching into high toughness vehicle or monsters. For 1 CP to select 2 character models to reroll hits and wounds into monsters and vehicles is a good way to spend our CP. And the last stratagem I want to talk about is Emperor's Auspice, and this is 1 CP, Epic Deed, your opponent's shooting or the fight phase just after an enemy has selected a target. Until the end of the phase, character models in that unit have a 4-up Feel No Pain ability, and this is the best strategy we have for keeping our character models alive. It will really help our solo Blade Champion models out the most. If we use it on a Blade Champion attached to a unit, it will only work on the Blade Champion itself. Unless the unit is already destroyed or it's precision damage, we could use this stratagem only to have the unit attached to the Blade Champion spike high on the save rolls, wasting the stratagem in the CP. And I want to talk about the Shoulder the Mantle stratagem. It used to be situational. You used to be able to drop a deep strike unit 9 inches away from a enemy unit and have a character a little closer to that enemy unit and then join these units together just to make that deep strike charge a little easier. And this was changed in the May 29th, 2024 FAQ that you have to use it before the reinforcement step. So you can't use this to attach a deep striking unit anymore. Alright, so let's give the Blade Champion a final score in the Auric Champions detachment. Even though there are no battle tactic stratagems in the Auric Champions detachment giving a shield captain an edge, I still like an Alara shield captain over a Blade Champion. They are better paired with a unit of 4 or 5 wardens. Auric is a character's detachment allowing solo characters some benefit over the other detachments in the Custodes Codex. As a solo unit, the Blade Champion loses the access to the reroll charge ability, since it needs to be leading a unit for it to work, and this is one of the reasons we usually take a Blade Champion for those reliable charge rolls. Still has a very potent melee either solo or attached to those Custodian Wardens or Guard. Assemblage of Might will help the Blade Champion have a reliable melee with that +1 to wound roll against the Assemblage of Might target. And this could be a hot take, but I don't like having a lot of Blade Champions in my Auric Champions list. So with some changes to the detachment rules, I think the Blade Champion can be a great addition to any Auric list. But for now, though, I give the Blade Champion a score of 7. Above average, but not as great as some of the other Custodian detachments, such as Shield Host or the Talons of the Emperor for the Blade Champion. The next detachment we'll go over is Shield Host, and the Shield Host detachment rule is Martial Mastery. Once per battle, at the start of the round, you can use Martial Mastery. If you do, until the next battle round, each Adeptus Custodes model with the Martial Kata ability gains critical hits on 5s, and then improve the AP of the melee weapons equipped by Adeptus Custodes with the Martial Kata ability by 1. This ability is fantastic for any powerful melee units. The Blade Champion is one of our best melee characters with different melee weapon profiles, giving lots of different options. Martial Mastery turns our Blade Champion into a blender in the combat phase. Now we'll go over the enhancements for the Shield Host. For we have Auric Mantle, add 2 to the bearer's wound characteristics. First of only 2 enhancements that can be used on the Blade Champion. The other 2 are Shield Captain only. Both enhancements are useful, but nothing game changing. This can be used to help keep our Blade Champion around a bit longer on the table. And the next one we have is Panopta Specs. While the bearer is leading a unit, ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit ignore cover. For 5 points, this can be a great points filler, but I'd much rather have this on an Alara's Terminator Captain. Custodian Guard or the Wardians have a lot less shots than the Alaris. The Alaris have a Guardian Spear and the D6 Blast Grenade Launcher, so with the big brick of Alaris Terminators, this is a much better enhancement just to allow you to ignore cover for all those shots. As I said, a points filler for a Blade Champion though. For the stratagems, there's only 3 stratagems in the Shield Host detachment that really makes me think of taking a Blade Champion. First one we have is Avenge the Fallen. This one is a 1 CP strategic ploy in the start of the fight phase. 1 Adeptus Custodes unit from your army that is below starting strength. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to the attacks of the melee weapons equipped by models in your unit. If your unit is below half strength until the end of the phase, add 2 to the attacks. The Blade Champion is one of the few units, if the only unit, I would actually consider using the stratagem on a regular basis. 1 or 2 extra attacks on the Blade Champion's already potent melee profiles, along with a unit attached, could be worth the 1 CP. With the sustained 1 kata, the more attacks the better to hit those 6s. The next stratagem we have is called Arcane Genetic Alchemy, and this is the only battle tactic stratagem in the Shield Host for 1 CP in any phase just after mortal wounds have been allocated to an Adeptus Custodes model. Until the end of the phase, models in that unit gain the 4 Final Pain to Mortal Wounds ability. And this is a great stratagem. It's a great way to mitigate some of those abilities or stratagems such as tank shock or grenades. The best part is we can wait to see how many mortal wounds that we've actually taken before we spend the 1 CP. It is the only usable battle tactic for the shield captains to use out of the 6 detachment stratagems, giving us a chance to double down on it, making it worth to use on a Blade Champion unit for 1 CP. And the final stratagem in the Shield Host I want to highlight that really benefits a Blade Champion is multi-potentiality. 1 CP, strategic ploy in your movement phase, 1 Adeptus Custodes unit from your army that has fell back this phase until the end of your turn. That unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. Our strong melee units love fallback and charge. Being able to shoot is a nice little bonus. The Blade Champions unit will love being able to fall back and then charge back in for fights first. The more we can hit the opponent before they swing, the better. With our low model count, we want to avoid losing models as much as we can. Multi-potentiality is not a battle tactic stratagem, which means the stratagem could be needed elsewhere on the board, but it's still a nice little option to have in our toolbox when we need it. On to a final score for the Blade Champion in the Shield Host Detachment. The Blade Champion is one of my favorite characters to lead units in the Shield Host. We want reliable charges in our Martial Mastery phase just to take advantage of those critical hits on 5s and extra AP on our melee weapons. Having reroll charges and a once per game advance in charge, the Blade Champion is a great unit we want to lead our Wardens or the Custodian Guard. Only one battle tactic in this detachment, making a Blade Champion even more appealing to lead units. One of the very few units with reliable damage 3. The Castellan Axes are damage 3, but they're AP 1. The Blade Champion can use an AP 3 damage 3 weapon. Fallback and charge with multi-potentiality is a great option to have with a Blade Champion on the board, just so we can gain fights first after the charge. With all these benefits to the Blade Champion for the Shield Host Detachment, I give the Blade Champion a 10 for the Shield Host. A fantastic choice to lead Custodian Wardens or your Custodian Guard. Okay, so for the enhancements for the Talons of the Emperor, we have Radiant Mantle. And this one is, each time attack that targets the bearer's unit, if the attacking model is within 12 inches, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Good enhancer to help to keep our Blade Champion's unit alive. I do like to put this on a unit that will be taking the most damage, probably my center objective holder. I prefer another enhancement on my Blade Champion though. The Gift of Terran Artifice. Each time a bearer makes a melee attack, add 1 to the wound roll. And this is the enhancement I do like to put on my Blade Champion. The Blade Champion is one of the few infantry units we have that has the damage 3 melee profile. Making that attack more reliable with the +1 to wound is great for the Blade Champion. Yes, you can use the axes on the Terminators or the Wardens, but they're only -1 AP and that really does hurt them. The next set of enhancements for Talons of the Emperor, we have Champion of the Imperium. This is the range of the bearer's Null, Aegis, or Deadly Units ability is increased to 9. Even if the detachment ability gets changed to Devastating Wounds, 25 points for an extra 3 inches will not be worth it over the other enhancements. Finally, we have Aegis Projector, and I actually like this one quite a bit. Once per turn, so that's play your turn and your opponent's turn, the first time a saving throw is failed for the bearer's unit, change the damage of the attack to 0. If the points are not available for Radiant Mantle, I take Aegis Projector, especially if the Blade Champion's unit will not be taking a lot of direct attack. Making use of 0 to damage of 1 failed save for player's turn, really good. Radiant Mantle is better for your volume attacks, but you have to be within 12 inches, and Aegis Projector works at any range, shooting or melee. A lot more helpful than I thought it would be. Now we'll go over the stratagems in the Talons of the Emperor detachment that may influence our decision to take a Blade Champion. For the first one is Hunt as 1. It is a fallback, shoot and charge stratagem, strategic ploy, 1 CP. Just like the Shield Host, the Blade Champion and the attached unit will love being able to fall back and re-engage for fights first, or charge into a whole different target. Hunt as 1 will make it very hard to keep a Blade Champion tied down in combat it does not want to be in. Attached to a unit of Custodian Wardens, it will make a very dangerous unit for the opponent to charge into. It's not a battle tactic, meaning we may have to choose between multiple units to use this stratagem on in some games. With us being able to increase the output of the Blade Champion with the Champion Humanity enhancement, the Blade Champion's unit is a good target for fallback and charge with Hunt as 1. The next stratagem we have is Emperor's Executioners, and this is 2 CP. It is a battle tactic that you could use with a shield captain, and what this does is if you're attacking a unit that is below starting strength, add 1 to the wound roll. This stratagem is great for getting reliable damage through with the Blade Champion. It is a bit more expensive at 2 CP. The bonus is it's a battle tactic, so you can be targeted with a shield captain's strategic mastery ability, making 0 CP, thus making it a little less appealing on a Blade Champion's unit. Another problem I have is a lot of my lists, I do have the Champion Humanity, giving the Blade Champion an all game +1 to wound in melee. So having a Blade Champion with this stratagem I find sometimes is a little redundant just since I already have +1 to wound on my Blade Champion. And the last stratagem I want to highlight for the Talons of the Emperor detachment that may influence our choice to take a Blade Champion is the Taloned Pincer. And what this one does, if the enemy unit ends a normal, fallback, or advanced move within 9 inches of the Blade Champion's unit, you can do a up to 6-inch reactive move. And like most units in our codex, this stratagem is great used on a Blade Champion. It can save the unit from a lot of damage throughout the game. We can use Talon Pincer to either get out of shot lanes or extend a charge an extra 6 inches. If we only have a model or two towed onto the objective, we can use this, pull ourselves further onto the objective, helping us gain control of it until our next phase. You can also use this to block charges, maybe into some of our Sisters of Silence. You can use this to move in front of the Sisters with a Blade Champion and some Wardens, or vice versa, throw some Sisters in front of the Blade Champion. It really defines the detachment being able to move in the opponent's movement phase, giving our slow army some extra movement, but also pairs well with the faster Blade Champion, being able to reroll charges in that once per game advance and charge. Now let's go over the score for the Talons of the Emperor. The Blade Champion does make a great option to lead a unit in the Talons of the Emperor from the fantastic datasheet alone. I prefer to have at least one Blade Champion Warden's unit in my Talons list. The Blade Champion paired with Champions of Humanity enhancement, the Blade Champion becomes a very reliable damage dealer. The Blade Champion does not have a way to make a battle tactic 0 CP. It will not be able to take advantage of the great battle tactic options in the Talons of the Emperor. The Blade Champion's unit is still a great target for these stratagems, except for Emperor's Executioner, since it is 2 CP, making it more situational, but Talon's Pincer is only 1 CP, so maybe if you do have a Shield Captain, you use it for free on the Shield Captain and you use it for 1 CP on the Blade Champion, allowing you to have 2 different units that can react and move in the opponent's movement phase. And even though I want a Shield Captain in my list before I have a Blade Champion, the Blade Champion is a close second. With an amazing datasheet and some of the great stratagem to use it on the unit, I do give the Blade Champion a score of 9. A fantastic unit that will be very useful in any Talons of the Emperor list. Let's end with some final thoughts on the Blade Champion. And it scored quite high in all the detachments, even the Null, Maiden, Vigil. The Blade Champion is one of the best character options we have in the entire Custodes range. Shield Host, I would say it is the best character option for that detachment. Talons also making a great case to add at least 1 Blade Champion. And even the Null, Maiden, Vigil would not mind a Blade Champion with Warden's unit in the list. Only detachment I do not favor them over a lot of the other Custodes character options is the Auric Champions detachment, just because they don't run as solo characters as well as the other ones. Also, it's a great looking model. Should be a part of every Custodes player's collection. Having a multiple would not hurt either. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Start playing your Blade Champions, throw them in all your lists, have fun with them. They add a lot of speed to our slow army, and they just look really great. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by.